Hey y'all, I'm back with another What's for Dinner. I'm going to be sharing 5 meals that I've recently made for my family. So the first one is going to be these garlic Parmesan chicken sandwiches. So I started by cooking up about a half a package of bacon. I like to do that in the oven. So I did pour a couple tablespoons of that bacon grease into a large skillet. I also added in a half a block of room temperature cream cheese, and I also threw in a shredded rotisserie chicken. So once you get the cream cheese and the chicken combined, you need a half a bottle of this Parmesan garlic sauce. This is the Buffalo Wild Wings one, but I know that there's other brands that makes it. That was my inspiration for making this dinner. I've had this bottle in my fridge for a while. I wanted to use it up, and I wanted to do it in a different way than the other couple ways that I typically use it, and I really liked using it up in this way. So now that all of that is combined together and warmed through, I can go ahead and start assembling the sandwiches. So these are the brioche buns that I'm going to be using. The recipe actually calls for these to be sliders, but I could not find any brioche slider buns the day that I went looking, and I got tired of looking, so I just decided to make full-size sandwiches out of it, and I think that was a really great decision. So I just have the bottom half of the buns laid out on a parchment lined cookie sheet. I layered on a good amount of that chicken mixture, followed by a slice of provolone cheese. The provolone was technically supposed to go on the bottom, but I forgot. But then I'm going to start adding on that bacon that I cooked up in the beginning. The recipe does call for it to be crumbled, but I just felt like leaving it whole. And then I'm just going to take some shredded mozzarella cheese, and I'm going to add a little bit onto each sandwich. I also have my oven preheating up to 375 degrees as I am assembling these sandwiches. But now I'm going to take the tops of those buns, and I'm just going to press those on top. The recipe calls for a tablespoon of butter to be melted, but I decided to save a dish, take a little shortcut, and just spread the butter on top of the buns. I'm using the Blue Bonnet butter. I know it's not real butter, but it does spread really good, so I like to use it for certain things. But lastly, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of Italian seasoning on top of that butter. Then I'm just going to take a large piece of tin foil and tint that over the sandwiches. That way, when I am baking these in the oven, the tops of the buns won't burn while I'm trying to get everything to heat through and melt. But I did bake those for around 20 minutes, and here's what they look like straight from the oven. I think that they look amazing, and I served it with a quick pasta salad. It's just some rotini pasta, cucumbers, chopped banana peppers, and the Kroger's creamy Italian dressing. Super good. And I made some fries in the air fryer for the rest of the family. I didn't plan on having any, but I decided to. I thought they looked good, and they went well with it, so I doubled up on the carbs. But as for these sandwiches, they were so good. They were a huge hit with everybody. They were super flavorful, and it was just so easy to throw together, so it's perfect for those busy nights. I would absolutely make it again. On this night, I went to my local Save-A-Lot, and I picked up a package of these strip steaks. I always like to kind of include the package on those so y'all can see like the price per pound. I typically only buy meat when it's on sale, but as you can see, it's 2 good sized pieces, and I'm just kind of trimming off the fat and cutting these into, I'd say, large chunks. And I'm going to be using these to make some hibachi steak bowls. So now that I've got all of these cut up the way that I want them, I'm going to start marinating them. So I've just got a gallon size Ziploc bag. As you can see, I've got the top piece folded down. I just find it easier to stuff in it that way. It kind of opens it up. So I've added all of my steak to it. I've also minced up about 5 to 6 cloves of garlic. This is my first time buying mirin. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I need a tablespoon of that. It also calls for some sesame oil, so I'm kind of eyeballing about a teaspoon worth of that. It also calls for 2 teaspoons of ginger paste. I think I definitely added a little bit too much of that because it was a little bit overpowering. But I'm also just going to add in some kosher salt and some black pepper, and then I'm just sealing up that bag, and I'm massaging everything into those steak pieces, and I let that marinate in the fridge for, I'd say, about 3 or 4 hours, but you really don't even need it for that long. The recipe said 30 minutes, but I decided to do that earlier in the day. So now that it's dinner time, I've got my large skillet back out. I've melted down a couple tablespoons of butter and about a tablespoon of sesame oil. I also prepped my veggies earlier in the day after I marinated the steak. So that's about 3 thinly sliced carrots, 2 zucchinis that I chopped into little half moon shapes, and then a package of baby Bella mushrooms. Now, I am new to eating mushrooms. I've only cooked with them one other time. That's when I made the Alice Springs chicken, and I used white mushrooms for that, and I liked those, but this was my first time ever having the baby Bella mushrooms, and I did not like them. I tried so hard, but I just did not like the taste of them. The rest of the family wouldn't even try them, so I hate it to waste those, but I don't know. I don't know why I didn't like them, but probably wouldn't buy them again. Maybe I did something wrong. I really don't know. But I cooked those vegetables for about 15 minutes until they started to get nice and tender. And then I seasoned them with garlic powder, salt, and pepper. And then I transferred them to a plate, set those to the side. And I did fry up some rice in my wok while I was cooking those vegetables. That's just a simple egg fried rice. So now all I have to do is cook up that steak. So to that same skillet I cooked the vegetables in, I melted down 2 more tablespoons of butter, added another tablespoon of sesame oil, and then I went ahead and dropped in all of that marinated steak. So I left it alone for a couple of minutes, and then I went in, gave it a stir. I'm trying to get color on all the pieces without overcooking it. I honestly had trouble cooking this steak. For one, I need to invest in some of those cooking chopsticks, if you know what I'm talking about. That would make it a lot quicker on like turning over each individual piece. Also, in previous videos, I know a lot of y'all have told me that I overcrowd my pan, which makes it cook the way it does, and I was really trying not to do that here, but looking at the clip now, I guess I kind of was doing that. So basically, if I am going to cook cubed up steak again, I'm going to cook it out on the Blackstone because it always turns out good that way. But anyways, once I got that steak cooked to my liking, I went ahead and added in some teriyaki sauce, gave that a stir for about a minute, and then put that on a separate plate. So it does not have the color I was going for, but it is juicy and flavorful. So now I'm going to start building the steak bowl. So I started with the fried rice, and then I added as much steak as I wanted and a big spoonful of all of those veggies. I also made a homemade yum yum sauce for the first time. This is something I didn't even know that I liked. I've never bought it. We do not go to hibachi restaurants very often at all. I've only been like a couple times in my life, but yeah, I like this sauce. I will link it in my description box. It was really good. It did pair everything together so perfectly. I love the rice. I love the carrots and the zucchini. I already told y'all I love the sauce. I like the steak, but I just didn't love the steak. For one, it was a little bit overcooked. And again, the ginger flavor was just a little bit too strong for us. So I was a little disappointed, not gonna lie. I was excited to make this. I had it planned for a while, but I don't know, maybe some of y'all can do it better. Next up, I am making a family favorite, and that is Marry Me chicken. I'm sure most of y'all have heard about this recipe by now. I know I've shared it on here at least once, but it is popular for a reason. So if you have never made this before, or if you have and it's just been a while, here is your sign to make it. So I start off with 2 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. This is the perfect amount for my family. And I just cut those pieces in half to make 4 thinner pieces. We really love chicken cut this way in pretty much any recipe. We're not big on like a fat piece of chicken breast. It's just so much better this way. Plus you get more bang for your buck, cooks up quicker, it flavors better. It's just the way to go. So basically here, I'm just seasoning both sides of the chicken with some kosher salt and some black pepper. If you want to do additional things, feel free to do so. But in this shallow dish, I have just some plain all-purpose flour. Didn't measure it, just kind of eyeballed what I thought I would need. And I'm just taking the chicken one by one and simply dredging it in that flour. I'm making sure that every inch of the chicken is covered, and then I just give it a little shake to get any excess flour off, and I repeated that to the other 2. So now I'm going to get my skillet ready. I'm melting down a couple tablespoons of butter, and you need a couple tablespoons of olive oil. So I decided to use the olive oil that the sun-dried tomatoes that I'm going to be using comes in. That way it's like a flavorful olive oil. So once that was nice and hot, everything was melted, I'm going to go ahead and add in the chicken. So a good rule of thumb for me with this size of chicken is about 5 minutes per side. I do have it on about a medium high heat. As you can see, it's developing that nice color that I love to go for. So flipped it over, cooked the other side, and I'm just removing that to a separate plate. When it comes to chicken, I do like to use a meat thermometer just to make sure the inside is cooked, and it was. So to that same skillet, I've added in a big spoonful of minced garlic just from the jar, and I am going to deglaze this pan with a cup of chicken broth. So just scraping the flavorful bits off the bottom. I'm turning the heat down a little bit, and I'm adding in 1 cup of some heavy whipping cream. I'm also going to throw in about a half a cup of some shredded Parmesan cheese. So once that melts into the sauce and it starts to slightly thicken a bit, I'm going to go ahead and add in just a little pinch of some crushed red pepper flakes. I'm also going to do some dried oregano and just some salt and pepper to taste. It does call for dried thyme, but I typically leave that out of this dish. Now I'm just going to add in my chopped sun-dried tomatoes. The recipe calls for a 1/3 cup. I probably honestly used a little more than that. I was just trying to finish off that jar that I had in the fridge, but I absolutely love sun-dried tomatoes. It truly makes this dish. So once I got the tomatoes added in there, I went ahead and added back in that chicken that I cooked, and I'm just going to let that simmer in the sauce for a few minutes to kind of enrich the sauce. As you can see, it's kind of deep in the color, and it's also going to heat that chicken right back up. So this is good over pasta, rice. This was my first time doing it with mashed potatoes. All 3 are really good options, and also just served it with a simple side of green beans. But yes, this dish is seriously so good. Everyone in my family loves it, even my kids. That's why I wanted to pull this oldie but goodie recipe back out. I love when I can find a meal that all 4 of us absolutely love. This next idea is something I saw on TikTok a long time ago, and I've just had it stored in the back of my mind all this time, and I finally wanted to give it a try. These are going to be some chili cheese stuffed corn dogs. Now, me personally, I'm not the biggest corn dog fan. I used to be, but as I've gotten older, my taste buds have changed, but everyone else in the house loves corn dogs, so I was excited to make this for them. So I'm going to bake the corn dogs according to the box directions, and while those are in the oven, I'm going to heat up that can of chili. Now, we're typically a Hormel chili family, but I wanted to give the great value one a try for the first time, so I'm glad I did because it's really good. It tastes so similar to the Hormel. The only thing that I noticed that was a little different is it seems to be just a tad bit spicy. So, yeah, I would definitely repurchase that. Definitely recommend if you've never tried it, if you're looking to save a little money. But once those corn dogs are cooked, I just took them off of the stick. I did put one aside for my son because he didn't want chili and cheese on his. But I'm just taking a knife and I'm splitting these down the middle. Now I'm just going to stuff all of these with that chili that I heated up. This would also be a great opportunity to use up some leftover homemade chili now that we are going into fall season, my favorite. You know, a lot of people tend to make chili in the fall, so this is a good way to repurpose it if you didn't want to use the canned stuff. Also, I don't know if y'all caught it, but I do buy the all beef corn dogs. They are a little bit more pricey than regular corn dogs, but to me, the quality makes it worth it. I'm the same way with hot dogs. Like, I always buy the all beef. To me, it is just, it's so much better, in my opinion. But now I'm just going to take some sharp cheddar cheese that I did shred myself, and I'm just going to layer that all over the top. I really wish I could remember the first person I saw this from so I could give him some credit, but I didn't save it, and it's just been too long. But I popped those back in the oven for about 10 minutes to melt the cheese, and here is what they look like. They are definitely messy, but it's something different, and I really love coleslaw on top of my chili dogs, so I realized that I have not made any homemade coleslaw in a while. That's something I typically make every summer, but I hadn't done it until now. So I like to take a half of a head of cabbage, and I like to grate it with my cheese grater. This texture right here is what makes it so good, I'm telling you. So I just transfer that to a small bowl, and I'm just going to set that to the side, and I'm going to grab a carrot. Sometimes I chop this up into small little pieces, and sometimes I shred it using that same cheese grater. It's definitely easier to do it this way. So this is a little more carrots than I typically use, but it doesn't have to be the same every time. It's all good. This is one thing that I never measure. And I'm going to add in a good amount of mayo. I'd say that's like a heap and a half cup. I've never used the Kraft in a coleslaw before, but like I said in a previous video, I've just been using what's on sale. I like to do a small splash of just white regular vinegar, and then I do a couple spoonfuls of sugar and just some salt and pepper to taste. That is it ingredient wise. It's going to look like you might need some more mayo, but as it sits in the fridge, it's going to put out some liquid and it turns out perfect. So I did prepare this about an hour before dinner, which honestly, coleslaw is better like if you make it the day before. It's so much better the next day, but I didn't plan ahead good enough. So there's my chili cheese corn dog. I like to put mustard on top of it as well. I don't know why I didn't put the coleslaw on top. That's typically what I do, but I also just air fried some tater tots. And for someone that doesn't like corn dogs that much, I absolutely love these, and so did the whole family. So this is something that I can definitely see myself making for many years down the road. I definitely recommend it if you've never tried it before. Lastly, I'm going to throw together a cheesy sausage and rice casserole. This was an unplanned dinner. It was one of those nights where I had no idea what to cook, so I was just working solely off what I had on hand. And I almost always have some of that Polish sausage in my fridge, so it's a great like backup option. I love how it can stay in the fridge for so long without spoiling. But anyways, I just sliced that sausage up, and then I took each slice and chopped it into 4 pieces. So now that it's in bite-sized pieces, I just put that in a large skillet with about 1/4 cup of water. And I'm just going to saute that around for a few minutes until that water evaporates and that sausage starts to heat through and get some color added to it. And then I'm going to throw in 1 cup of chicken broth, 1 can of cream of mushroom soup. If you don't like cream of mushroom soup, you can swap that for any cream soup that you want to. But now I'm just seasoning it with some onion powder, Cajun seasoning, pepper, some crushed red pepper flakes, and I did 1/4 cup of milk. So I'm just going to continue stirring this until it's got a nice smooth sauce, no lumps, and I want this to start to boil. So once it starts to come to a low simmer, nice and bubbly, I'm going to add in 1 cup of some sharp cheddar cheese that I shredded. The recipe does call for 3 cups total of cheese, but even I, as a cheese lover, think that might have been a little bit too much, so I just ended up doing 2 altogether. But once that cheese melted into the sauce, I threw in 2 cups of some cooked white rice. I cooked up some jasmine rice over there to the side while I was cooking up the sausage. So just tossed that in, grabbed a casserole dish that I sprayed with some nonstick cooking spray, and poured that on in. Now, I was worried about this because it's looking pretty soupy here. I wasn't sure how it was going to work out, but it ends up working out just fine. As it bakes in the oven, that rice is going to absorb a lot of that liquid. So I'm just covering it with another cup of cheese, and then I'm just going to tightly cover my dish with some tin foil, and I bake that at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes. Now, this might be a little bit random, but I had that other half of the cabbage head in my fridge that I didn't use for the coleslaw, so I just sauteed that up and put the casserole over top of it, and I thought it all worked out really good together, and the recipe came out great. It was cheesy and creamy and flavorful, and even my kids liked it. So it was a win. But that is going to wrap up this video. I hope that it gave you a couple ideas. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in my next one.